being here, both online, and in person. Tonight's talk is going to be OCD tendencies. As always, the goal of these educational talks is, yes, to help you get better. But the bigger goal is, how can I help empower you to help friends and family members? How can I help you see things, little nuances that are indicating that they can get some help, that there's different things that we can do, but they're not things that we usually look for. So my goal is to empower, uplift, and see changes in you, the people in my community and our community, that will lead to helping friends and family members that have issues or have issues that they don't even know they have yet, things that are starting that could turn into issues. That's our ultimate goal here, is to help our community be able to make wiser choices, to be able to help each other and spread that health, that light, so that we can make wise decisions. Where this concept came for me was that I have coaches and they teach me different things. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but every roughly month I do a seminar on something, everything from functional medicine to different ways to help educate people, neurology, chiropractic. We do different things. In one of these educational seminars I was at, there was a speaker, and he brought up the fact that the number one thing that leads to disease and dysfunction is poorly made decisions repeatedly over and over and over. So it's not the big thing. It could be, but 99% of the time, it's making a poor decision repeatedly is what gets us sick. It's not once, it's 5,000 times. Just like making a wise decision repeatedly can get us healthy. So health isn't elusive. It's actually quite simple. It's just doing the right thing every day, and it might only take a minute. So an example of this is, have we ever heard the adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? It's actually true. And I'll show you how this works. So the apple has what's in it called apple pectin. So it's literally, it has fiber in it. And the fiber in the apple, if you have the right acidity, will actually make your gut make good short chain fatty acids, which are butyrate, aspartate, doesn't matter. They're things that grow the bacteria that will actually make your immune system stronger. There are things that will grow the bacteria so that you have the right bacteria. So eating that good fiber will actually make you grow the right bacteria so that if you have a brain injury, you'll actually stop the brain cells from deteriorating. That good short chain fatty acids will actually help the right bacteria grow so that you have the right microbiome, so that your immune system works correctly. So that you have the right microbiome, so you actually make the right neurotransmitters. So you have the right microbiome so that your body doesn't become inflamed. And here's really cool. If you have the right microbiome because you ate that apple, you actually get rid of 50% of all the toxins in your body in your gut. So if you're exposed to, say, a benzene or a heavy metal or something, the bacteria will actually get rid of the bad stuff just like your liver will. So that adage, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, is actually true. But the question is, are you willing to eat the apple? Are you willing to eat the pear? Are you willing to eat the fruit daily to keep yourself healthy? Or at the end of the week, are you going to eat 7 of them? So what are we going to do? Or are we just going to think about it and know it and not do it? So literally the difference is just knowing and doing. Because lots of people know what to do. Doesn't mean they do. I'll hear this quite often. Well, I know what to do, Doc, but I just don't know how to get there. And I'll talk about that and how we can actually achieve that. So what I'm showing you here is it's small steps that cause major changes in our lives. Just like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you walk around the world? One step at a time. So it's really simple things, And most people think that it has to be really big and complex, and it isn't. It's doing a small thing repeatedly. That's how you succeed. The winners win because they don't stop. It's not because they win all the time. They fail, but they just keep going. That's how the winners win. Does that make sense? So if you don't stop trying to keep yourself healthy, you'll be in the right direction. You'll be going the right way. You'll be helping yourself. It's when you stop is when the problem happens. So what we're going to talk about now is obsessive tendencies, or OCD. And this time I'm actually going to do a story. So what we're going to talk about is Jane. Now, Jane isn't a real person. I'll use Jack and Jill or Jane or whoever. It's not a real person, but it's based on how many people I've seen and the different things that I've seen happen. So in Jane's life, Jane's 35. Jane has OCD. Jane goes to her medical provider, and the provider means well, but he says, we got a couple ways we can help you. You can either take pharmaceuticals like SSRIs or benzos, or we can do surgery and implant a stimulator in your brain. And she goes, no, I don't want either. Well, that's all you got. So you're either going to have to learn to live with it, or you're going to do these things. And then Jane shows up at my door at 35. I also failed to mention that her OCD was so bad that she couldn't finish her first year of college. So as a byproduct of this, Jane is unable to make the income that she wants. Her goals in life are to have a solid, steady job and get married. So not anything crazy. She just wants a job and get married. So if we look at this right now, before she shows up at our office, she's told she either has to take medication or have surgery. This should sound familiar to a lot of you because this is what a lot of you are told. And understand, the people that told you this are not mean people. It's just they only have those tools. Does that make sense? So then we look at Jane's life and we go, well, what could have led to this? What could have drawn or pushed her down this path? And we start doing a history and we go, okay, what has affected Jane in her life? So we find out that Jane was a C-section birth. Now I want you to be aware, do you know how many people are actually C-section birth in the US? It's between 40 to 50%. In the two coast states of California and New York, it's considered too posh to push. This is what the physicians say. And the C-section rate can get up to 60%. Now, if you look at the World Health Organization, what they state is if the C-section rate is more than 10 to 15% max, you're doing it not out of necessity, but you're doing it to make your life easier. So C-section should only happen if you believe the baby is actually compromised. That's what the medical literature shows. So there's a C-section. Why do I bring that up? With a C-section, guess what happens? You do not move through the vaginal canal, so you're not exposed to the right bacteria. And so what happens is the bacteria that the child gets is the bacteria that is on the chest or on the body of the parent. So they're being set up to right away have the wrong bacteria, so they're going to have the wrong neurotransmitters. Just the way she was born. But if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known that, right? So if we've had a C-section or a friend or family have had a C-section, we already know they're set up to having some issues just because of the microbiome or the bacteria that they have. Now we can help them stabilize it. There's ways to do that. But that's number one. The next thing was Jane, when she was a kid, she loved to climb trees. Do we always get down trees the right way? No, we fall. Oh, but that's just a normal kid thing. I want you to understand that falling out of the tree, even when you're a kid, will set up your brain for chronic inflammation. It will actually set up your brain for chronic neurodegeneration. So those chronic falls when you're a kid can set up for a problem when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Those soccer ball headings that cause you to get a little dizzy can set you up from problems later on in life. Those football injuries will set you up for problems later in life. Those car accidents will set you up for problems later on in life. But the thing is, those head injuries don't cause problems right away. They usually take 10 to 20 years until the degeneration is so bad that the issue actually shows up. So then we look at, okay, well, she's got some scraped knees, all that stuff. And then we start looking at her life. When did this problem actually start showing up, Jane? And she goes, well, it happened after I broke up with my boyfriend when I was a teenager. So what was that? That couldn't have been that bad, right? Well, think of how important those relationships are for kids. It's literally everything to them, to the point where we see children, teenagers, that the relationship, if it doesn't work out, will actually kill themselves now. So that's how important that relationship is. And for her, she broke up, but it was a breakup because another girl liked the boy and started spreading rumors.
Fuck. Piece of fucking shit.
Please, no swearing. So we see this. We have huge emotional stress, and we're still in a day where now it's on social media. So then what happens? She's got head injuries. She's got a C-section. Her boyfriend breaks up with her, and that's the cleaning or the change that literally sends her into OCD. Does this sound like out of the normal stress for a person that we would know? No, it sounds like normal life. What else can we see happen? Well, as a byproduct of this, Jane starts wanting to control the environment around her because she could not control what happened to her. And this is an adaptation. This is a stress adaptation to try to protect herself. Now, it sounds like an okay adaptation, but what happens if that adaptation or change now becomes the way of her experiencing life? Then we start getting issues. So how does that show up when we actually look at the brain? When we look at the brain, OCD, true OCD, happens right here in the frontal cortex. So OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. If you truly have OCD, it's going to show up right here, and there's a very specific ratio that we look for. And that ratio is the high beta divided by low beta ratio. If you don't, you'll talk, well, what is that? I'll tell you. We're going to go through that. High beta is 26 to 38. Low beta is 13 to 25. So the ratio is really fast stress divided by lower stress. You know how I always say beta is bad? It's not that simple. Low beta is actually okay for you. But when I first was educating you, I needed to make it very simple. But when you go into beta, the beta brainwave, if you produce low beta, it will actually help you with memory. It'll help you with your ability to retrieve. It's just that it uses a lot of energy. So what happens, the mechanism for OCD that we see is the person is so stressed out and they can't control what happened to them. So their response is to now become a control-related person. So how does this show up? Well, we'll see things like we always have to be on time or everything's going to fall apart. We see things like the house has to be always clean or I don't feel safe. In extreme OCD cases, you'll see things where everything has to be lined up, and if you touch it, everything's going to hell in a hand. And these are adaptive change because what's going on is the person cannot self-regulate their own feelings and their own thoughts, so they regulate the environment. That means they change the environment to try to make themselves calm because they cannot stabilize their own brain. Isn't that sad? That's scary. That means if you can't control the environment, everything falls apart. And if you have people in your life where that happens, now you start understanding why things have to be done certain ways. Because they literally can't regulate their own emotions. What goes hand in hand with this, though, is with OCD, we usually see increased brain chatter, increased racing thoughts. So OCD is fixation on a single idea, and it keeps ruminating or going over on and on and on and on again. But this is very common in females, is we'll also see the back of the brain is racing too fast. So that would be increase in beta and decrease in theta. And if you don't know what that means, it means increase in fast brainwave and decrease in slow brainwave. The problem with this is the back of the brain is what the pace for the whole brain will be. It's the subconscious. So if you're somebody who can't handle stress, that brain chatter, the new ideas coming in all the time, think about this, think about that, and it never is calm, that's the back of the brain running too fast. And this is a protective mechanism. What we see this happening as is, I was hurt, now I have to think of every possible thing that could hurt me, and then I'll never be hurt again. So if you understand that, you go, okay, well, that makes sense as an adaptive state for a day, but what's the long-term effects of that? Now you can't sleep. Now you're prone to addictions. This is where addictions actually come from, is the back of the brain. You've been hurt by an emotional, physical, chemical experience. You need to protect yourself chronically, but now you never calm down. So now you need a substance or an action to make yourself feel calm. So that's your alcohol, your sex, or your gambling, or your sports, or your television, or whatever it is, to make yourself feel calm. This is the genetically predisposed addictive brain, is this. And if you have this with a dopamine issue, where you have low dopamine, then you're going to be predisposed to having an addiction. So we see that. So what happened with little Jane, front of the brain sped up, back of the brain sped up even more, because we got to figure this out. And now, after that boyfriend breaks up with her in high school, OCD, brain chatter, sleep issues, have to control the environment, goes to college, can't get through school because her brain just won't shut up and she's scared and it's too stressful. Because with this back of the brain running too fast, you can't handle stress. You have poor stress management. Then she turns to alcohol to try to deal with it. And then fast forward, she can't get through school. So now she takes a lower paying job. And she's unable to get a home. So she wants to get a home. She wants to have a family. She wants to go to school. But now she's in her 30s. Then she shows up at our door. And what do? We do the examination, and guess what we find? Exactly what I'm showing you. This is literally between 70 to 90% of every female I see has this brain. It's not as common in males, but females, I see this all the time. And what happens with this is they go, and burn themselves out. If you have this OCD tendency, you're also going to be prone to autoimmune, because these two areas of the brain control your immune system. So if they're not firing correctly, now you're prone to autoimmune diseases. Guess what sex has more autoimmune problems than the other? Females do. It's roughly between 70 to 90% of all autoimmune diseases run in females. You will see arthritis in males, but all the major attacking ones you usually see in females. You hardly ever hear about an autoimmune like Hashimoto's in a male. It's 9, 10 out of 10 times always females. That could be physiology related, but we see this adaptation where brain chatter, fixation, must take care of it, feel calm for a second or two, brain chatter, fixation, now I can't sleep, now I just keep going, now I can't relax, oh my gosh, I'm falling apart, run myself ragged, and we keep seeing these issues. So she comes in, we find these problems. Now, what are we going to do? She doesn't want to take addictive medication because guess what? The 2 drugs that are given to her can actually make this worse. So the SSRI, that's stuff like Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, Celexa, Lexapro. All of those will actually do a specific thing to the brain. If your OCD is only because the frontal lobe is off, they will work. But remember how I said 90 to 95% of them always have this here? Those drugs will actually make it worse. Because what happens is, with those SSRIs, they drive up beta, low beta, and they drive down alpha. So what does that do? In the frontal lobe, it'll actually make the OCD tendency go away. But the problem is the drug doesn't affect just one area in the brain. It affects the whole brain. So we have too much of the beta in the back. So now the OCD is gone, but now the person can't sleep and their stress management is out the hill and they have severe anxiety. And they start self-medicating because the medication is actually making the problem worse. Now, I'm telling you about the easy one because the SSRI is one that you can get off quite easily. It doesn't take as long to wean yourself off of it. The other one that is literally the most addictive substance that is given to people right now that most people have no clue of is a benzo. So benzodiazepine, benzodiazepine, if it says benzo in it, it's literally the worst thing you can give to somebody. Why do I tell you this? Because right now, it's the running addictive problem in our country and nobody's talking about it. It is worse than the opioid addiction. It is far worse and nobody's talking about it. Why am I telling you this? With the opioid, it would take you 3 days to become addicted. And if you have this brain and you became addicted, you could be stuck on it. But you had to have that predisposition. With the benzo, there's no predisposition. You take that drug, and if you take it for more than a week, the average is 2 weeks, it can take as much as 2 years to get off of it when you start. And the problem is that drug does exactly like the other one does. It drives up beta. So now when you try to get off the benzo, you can't sleep. Now when you try to get off the benzo, you start getting anxiety attacks. Now when you try to get off the benzo, yeah, you have suicidal thoughts. And this is all because guess what it affects? The brain stem. It literally affects the neurotransmitter GABA, which job is to make you calm down. So we're talking about something that literally is worse than opioids. Yes.
The withdrawal from benzodiazepines can kill you. With opiates, it's just very unpleasant, but it can actually kill you. Alcohol and benzos are the 2 that can kill you.
So statement is the 2 substances that can kill you from withdrawal is alcohol and benzos. The benzos, I've seen firsthand it being insane. It literally being insane where we see people not listen to physicians saying, if you're going to do it, you have to go stupid slow. Like slow, like you feel like you're a turtle stuck going backwards. But you'll have people that mean well and they'll try to pull themselves off right away, and they will literally set themselves into huge crises. And they'll end up in the ER, and then they'll end up on 2 or 3 more meds. And I'm telling you this because this is the hidden pandemic that nobody's talking about.
Well, they're talking about, my daughter died from that.
So you're hearing that they're talking about? Because I don't hear it from
Yeah,
many.
she just took benzo. She thought it was cool. She was at Gonzaga. It was
Gotcha.
cool. And then I have a dead daughter.
Yes. So the statement is, one of our clients had a daughter that had taken them and she passed away because of it. So we're not hearing about this on the news. We're not hearing about it the same as we're hearing about opioids. But this is a big, big issue. So I'm telling you this because this is one of the major substances that is given to people with OCD, with anxiety. And they are not anything to laugh at. Literally, we can talk about 2 weeks of use taking 2 years to wean yourself off. There are protocols to help people, but this is literally changing your brain and changing the way your brainstem works. And if you remember about the brainstem, it is what controls how you calm down. It's what controls things like heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol, different things like this. So what I want us to understand is, if you have a friend or family member who's thinking about getting on something like this, please tell them, check every other thing out. Because it's not like an antidepressant where you can wean yourself off quickly. We're literally talking about years. So I'm glad we brought this up because I want you to know this is a hidden pandemic that's going on. This is a hidden problem that nobody's talking about. And I'm sure that within the next 10 to 15, maybe 20 years, it will become just as big a problem for everybody to know about, just like the opioids. So if you're aware now, you can help a friend or family member. If you're aware now, we can help save somebody else. Now understand, this lady, when she came in, she didn't want to take any of that. So what did we do for her? Well, guess what? There are nutraceuticals, which means supplements that are non-addictive that we can give you that will increase serotonin. They will increase GABA, and that's what benzos work on. They will increase dopamine and naturally allow you to heal yourself. And as we train your brain to make the right frequencies in the back and the front, you can actually stabilize it. And you can actually watch the problem go away. The difference with this is it takes more time because we actually have to train you to make new connections. And if you're I want the change now, you may go down the quick and easy, but then the almost impossible to get off route. But if you're willing to put in the time and energy, you can actually rewire the brain and watch the problems actually go away. So think of a friend or family member and have them understand, yes, it's going to take some time, an investment of time, energy, and finances, but it will change your life for the good. One of the side effects of getting proper neural treatment as well as chiropractic care is that your IQ will go up. Another side effect is better stress management. Another side effect is your HRV will become more stable. HRV literally determines how long you're going to live. It's a direct indicator of how well you can deal with stress and how fast your heart speeds up and slows down, and directly indicates longevity of life. These are all things that just chiropractic care alone can take care of. Then we mix in some nutrition, help stabilize the gut, give you some neurotransmitters. Well, the basis to make the neurotransmitters, and you can literally heal yourself with these things. But understand the underlying psychological problem that has made this has to come out. So I'm sure you've all seen what we call with breakthroughs or cathartic releases. That's when the emotions come out. That's actually what's healing you. When you remove that emotion, when you deal with that thought, that will actually allow you to have your brain fire correctly, the protective mechanism goes away, and you actually heal yourself. So when your friend or family member says, I don't want to talk about it, that's literally them setting themselves up for failure. You don't have to talk with them right now, but in a week or two, they need to get that out, or it's setting themselves up for things to get worse. Is this making sense? So we take care of Jane, and in 6 months, guess what? It's all gone. Was it work? Yeah. But she got better. So instead of having a pharmaceutical that she's on that's neurodegenerative, or having something put in her body, she now can functionally work by herself and is stable, holds a job, is going back to school, and looking for that right guy. So think of that story the next time you hear somebody talking about not dealing with emotion. Think of that story when you talk about somebody who can't sleep, because there may be some underlying issues going on. And if you just ask a couple questions, hey, is it okay? You know, how is this affecting you? Just come alongside that person, you may change their life. So I want to thank you all for being here and have a blessed night.
Thank you.